Welcome to Copenhagen, where we're looking for the weird and wonderful.
From weather predicting women to underwhelming statues.
Come with us today and explore with us. And our first stop, only in Denmark will you find a golden statue of a woman predicting the weather. Up there, if the weather is good, you will see a golden woman on a bicycle. If it is predicted to be bad, that woman is walking a dog with an umbrella. It was built in 1936 on top of this building, and, well, I don't think it's doing a very good job of predicting because it is meant to rain later. As you can see, it's quite cold. I've got my hat on. It used to be done by a barometric system like normal old school weather predictions, but now it's been updated over time, probably slightly less reliable.
Next we come to the Stork Fountain, which was built to commemorate the 30th wedding anniversary of King Christian IX and Queen Louise. But it's actually got really weird use now. So when midwives qualify, they can be seen in stork hats dancing around the fountain. So if you ever see a load of ladies in big stork hats running around Copenhagen, you know why.
So our next stop is Nyhavn, and I'm not going to tell you about how Instagrammable it is and all the boring stuff. I'm going to tell you about the weird and wacky. Now, originally it wasn't this colourful. It was pretty dark and drab, and it used to have the sailors. It was basically like the red light district of the canal here, where the sailors would come in, drink, prostitution, etc. But the fun thing is, Danish history tells me that actually the most famous place, postcardable place, was actually built by Swedes. Yes, that sibling rivalry comes and bites you in the backside because Swedes built this. Prisoners of war, so it wasn't necessarily their choice, but a little fun fact that the most famous place, built by Swedes. So right here is one of those that you may not see. It's Agnet and the merman. Well, Agnet is not in there, but basically it is a merman statue with children. And the story goes that Agnet was lured in by the merman, they got married, had children, heard the church bells and got out of the water. When she got out of the water, she never returned. So these statues are here to represent them, waiting for Agnet to return. One that you can easily miss, and even now it's a bit hard to see, but a really, really cool little statue and another symbol of some weird wackiness here in Copenhagen.
Behind me is the Copenhagen Opera House, which was donated by the Muller family, who own the Maersk shipping company. Maersk revolutionised the way cargo was transported around the world by keeping it in container from source to its final destination. But the Opera House is quite controversial because it was a charitable donation, which means they didn't have to pay any tax on it. And this is a company that Maersk has thousands of ships around the world, but only 13 are based in Denmark. And that 13 is all they have to pay tax on because they are part of the tonnage old scheme in Denmark. So basically they paid no tax and this was taken off their tax as well.
I would also say it looks quite cool because the buildings behind me, they are quite concretey, so they're not that pretty, but they very much look like a Viking longhouse. They've got the kind of arching going up and they're quite long. Quite a nice sight in the background that I just noticed. Whether or not it is actually meant to be, I don't know, but so in the comments let me know. Are they meant to look like longhouses? And obviously while you're down there, like and subscribe. Also next to the Opera House in the distance, you see a power station. I mentioned this at the end of our Copenhagen vlog where we looked at all the cool historical sites. But something really, really awesome about that is it's not just a waste to energy power station. It has a dry ski slope on the side of it, and it has some cafes and things as well. They originally wanted it to be kind of a leisure area with sports facilities and stuff. I don't think that's necessarily taken off, but one, it's a really funky designed power station. Secondly, it has a dry ski slope on the side, which is really, really weird but cool at the same time. Behind me is one of the largest monuments in all of Copenhagen. This tells you the story of how Denmark was created in Norse mythology. Now the story goes, this is goddess Gefion. The King of Sweden made a deal with her that you could have as much of Sweden as you like, but you must plough it in one day. So she turned her 4 sons into ox, giant ones at that, and they pulled as much as they could. That land is now Zealand, which is where Copenhagen is. So probably not true, but a fun story, and a really, really cool fountain as well, which would look really good in the summer when the sun is shining and there is water in it. But fun stories like that you can find all over Copenhagen and Denmark.
We've come to the most famous tourist attraction in Copenhagen, and also the biggest disappointment, the Little Mermaid. So Carl Jacobsen had this commissioned. He's the son of the founder of Carlsberg, and there's actually 2 of these. The other one is in the Carlsberg Museum here in Copenhagen. So he was a huge fan of the Little Mermaid by Hans Christian Andersen and decided to commemorate it by having this statue built. So the head of the statue is actually the ballerina's head that portrayed it in the ballet. However, she wouldn't pose nude, so the body is actually of his wife, which is a little bit weird. So 2 different people to make up the statue. Another interesting fact about this, and something very interesting, is Copenhagen actually tried to sue Mexico City government for one of these statues because they said they'd made a copy of it to make it exactly the same. However, it didn't go through. Turns out there's bigger boobs on the one in Mexico City.
Well, it is a new day. We got a little bit soaked and it is still raining, but we start again afresh. Now, behind me is the Circus building, built in 1886. Let me just double check. 1886, I was correct. Now, what's interesting here is it is an actual static building for travelling circuses. I don't think I've ever seen this concept before, but what happened was circuses travelled, and sometimes when they got to the main big cities, they needed somewhere to stay for a little bit longer, and that's where this comes in. Now, it is a beautiful building with all the decorations on the side of chariots and things, but it's a big dome roof, so you can have those trapeze acts and the typical circus acts that you would normally think of. Now, though, it's not really used for circuses, it's shows, dinner parties and things like that. But yeah, first time I've ever seen an actual static circus building. And what about this? These are axle towers, 5 cylindrical towers that look sort of like drums or rings all linked together. But this is some awesome architecture that you kind of are starting to see now over Copenhagen. And this was built in 2017. What it does by having those round windows, round designs, is it lets a lot of light in. You can see all around the city because behind me over there is Tivoli Gardens, which we're going to shortly. But it's just so cool to look at from the outside. And you see these buildings, there's a cactus looking building as well. And it really just draws the eye and makes it a more interesting, exciting city to walk around rather than just drab concrete. But it's really nice. It's office buildings, there's communal areas, and basically everyone is linked between by a walkway as well. Just, oh, it's so cool. I love seeing architecture like this. It's just mad design that just takes you away from the ordinary.
Our final stop is Tivoli Gardens, which unfortunately is closed for the winter at the moment. Interestingly, it's one of the oldest still operating amusement parks, built in 1843, and it was built under an interesting pretense that if people are amused, they won't care about politics. The park is built very interestingly because it's not just your average theme park. It has got a mixture of rides, theatre and parkland and gardens. So it was actually what Walt Disney based Disneyland on as well, something like this. So it's pretty cool.
Another thing about Tivoli Gardens, it has the oldest wooden roller coaster.
It does.
1914. It used to be operated by a man sitting in a cart that used to pull on a lever to actually control the brakes. Now, I don't like roller coasters anyway. Even less chance of me getting on that.
See, I would have really liked to have gone on that. I don't mind rides. I'm not sure how much I like going upside down, but normal rides, very good.
God, no. Now, that is us. That is our little weird and wonderful trip around Copenhagen, where we've seen and been able to tell you some stories about the city and some of the quirkiness. For example, you know, the goddess who turned her sons into oxen to plough the land and create Zealand, where we are now, to the weird and wonderful architecture. So I hope you enjoyed. That is just a little bit of inspiration for your trip here to Copenhagen, but thank you so much for watching. If you want to help us, then you can go to asweare.space to check out our merchandise, like and subscribe. That is the free thing to do, and as always, we will catch you next time.
Bye.